arrived.
Let's take you down to Alabama, and that man on the horse is the big winner. There he is, Judge Roy Moore.
Voters chose their nominee. We're going to get in and make sure that Roy Moore is the next senator from Alabama.
From the sidelines to the House floor now, the Take a Knee protest continues to intensify.
After the anthem ended, I took off my security shirt and quit my job because I stood up for veterans and, you know, I did the right thing.
If they keep doubling down on stupid, NFL is going to stand for no fans left.
President Trump is promising to make America competitive again. That is the opening pitch in his latest tax reform push.
We will cut taxes tremendously for the middle class. Not just a little bit, but tremendously.
And Tennessee Republican Senator Bob Corker is retiring at the end of his term in 2018. One name already floating around to replace him, NFL legend Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning, senator. Sounds pretty good.
We like it and love it that you're joining us today on the Curvy Couch. Ainsley is off today, and Abby is in. And as we learned in the last hour, you just heard it in that cold open, apparently Abby has memorized the Nationwide is on your side ad.
It was the most.
Who has not memorized that by now?
It was one of the most brilliant accepting of a tosses I can remember, because I said Peyton Manning is his name is brought up to be the next senator from Tennessee or to run because Corker's retired. Senator Corker's retiring, and you were able to break into that song. Here's the problem: I can't picture him leaving this multi-million-dollar endorsement career. He isn't even going to broadcasting because it would be such a pay cut. How does he go do that and leave everything else?
That's a good question. Some people just want to change.
Right.
You know, they want a change in lifestyle. They want a different challenge.
Right. And he's a born leader.
He's
it would
a
be
leader.
great.
The other person whose name's been brought up is Michelle Bachmann, and she would be fantastic
that's
as a
an interesting
contender
one.
from Tennessee, and she's great.
Anyway, we've got busy 2 hours for you on this Wednesday morning. Right now, though, Fox News alert.
Yep, the Taliban claiming responsibility for a rocket attack. They're targeting Defense Secretary James Mattis shortly after landing in Afghanistan last night.
Pentagon producer Lucas Tomlinson is live for us at the Pentagon and has brand new breaking details this morning. Lucas, what are you hearing?
Well, good morning, Abby. Less than 2 hours before Defense Secretary Jim Mattis arrived at Kabul's International Airport, U.S. officials tell me 40 to 45 rockets and rocket-propelled grenades slammed into the ground. Now, the fact that rocket-propelled grenades were used indicates some kind of ground assault. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack. Now, these same officials tell me Defense Secretary Mattis and his official party had departed the airport aboard helicopters before a press conference with Afghanistan's president. The Taliban are claiming credit for the attack, and this raises serious questions about who tipped them off. The attack happened at 7:30 a.m. local time, 11 p.m. here on the East Coast. Mattis had been in India the day before and spoke at the press conference in Kabul alongside the president of Afghanistan about the attack.
An attack on an international airport anywhere in the world is a criminal act by terrorists. It's designed to go after generally innocent people to make some sort of statement, and this is a classic definition of what the Taliban are up to right now. We will suffocate any hope that Al-Qaeda or ISIS, Daesh, Haqqani or the Taliban have of winning by killing. I want to reinforce to the Taliban that the only path to peace and political legitimacy for them is through a negotiated settlement.
This is Secretary Mattis's first trip to Afghanistan since President Trump announced a new strategy for the 16-year-old war last month, which includes sending more than 3,000 additional U.S. troops to join nearly 11,000 on the ground. And these new troops will be serving closer to the front lines with the ability to call in airstrikes. Now, already, U.S. jets are increasing the number of bombs they are dropping on the Taliban and an ISIS affiliate. Last month, more bombs were dropped than any time in the last 5 years. And yesterday on Capitol Hill, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dunford, says Pakistan needs to stop harboring the Taliban and Haqqani network and offering them sanctuary in their country. Abby, guys?
And that, Lucas, is probably a warning shot, because we all know that's where they regroup and they come across the border you served, and that's what's creating chaos in Afghanistan. But we're going to have to make that move, or else it's fruitless to even continue fighting.
Hey, Lucas, a quick question for you. Since it was an unannounced visit with Mattis and the UN Secretary General, are they thinking it might be an insider job?
That's a possibility, Steve. I mean, the Defense Secretary was in India the day before, and many times when, senior U.S. officials travel in the region, they do like to pop in, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan. But certainly it raises questions about who tipped off the Taliban, because the rockets landed less than 2 hours after the Defense Secretary touched down. Steve?
All right, Lucas Tomlinson, our producer at the Pentagon. Thank you very much.
I'll tell you one man you don't want to mess with is Secretary James Mattis.
He's already
you don't
got
want to
the
go near
message.
that guy.
He's already got the message that, there's no place secure like it used to be in Afghanistan, so to speak, for a few years after the initial invasion. But I just think that if we decide to go into Pakistan and start making life hell for the Haqqani network and for the Taliban that trains there and that was born there and Al-Qaeda that bleeds through there, that will be beginning to make it a better chance for our guys to be unscathed and come back home.
All right, let's go down to the White House right now. Kellyanne Conway joins us from the North Lawn. Kellyanne, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, it looks like a majority of Americans agree with the President of the United States that people should stand during the national anthem. I saw in the Wall Street Journal yesterday people are canceling their DirecTV Sunday ticket because they're so steamed at the players. We had a security guy on just about a half an hour ago. He worked for years for the Bills, couldn't take it anymore. He threw in the jersey, said, "I quit, I can't take it." What is going on in America right now?
Look, about 12% of the NFL players took a knee and protested the other day, but that means 88% did not. And many Americans support the president's position on this because the president is supporting the flag and everything that it stands for. The men and women who have sacrificed on behalf of our freedom so that you and I can have this conversation this morning, and some who gave the ultimate sacrifice. This is about the president standing up for the national anthem and the flag, and I think more importantly, showing you to somebody who lost a loved one overseas in combat and basically said there's a reason that the flag comes back, that coffin comes back to Andrews Air Force Base draped in our American flag. And that really, I think, brought it home for me.
Right. There's so much going on about this, but it has started in 2016 when President Obama was president. This isn't just start. This president brought it forward. And the question is, being that at least 7 NFL owners are so passionate for Donald Trump, they actually gave to his campaign, probably more, knows a lot of him personally. Do you think the president will be open to hearing from those owners with some select players and union members to try to work a way through this? Because right now, both sides are talking at each other, and they seem both dug in, and the fans are in the middle.
Well, this president is always open to speak to any number of people. He's probably held more meetings, roundtables, Oval Office visits in his first 8 months than many presidents have done in a much longer period of time. So, of course. But remember, this should not be seen as a clash of personalities. This is about principles. This is not about politics. This is about what binds us as a nation. We can't have what binds us as a nation animus towards Donald Trump by those who get a megaphone every single day, particularly on TV shows and in print. What we need to know is that there are very few things in our very disparate, very large and growing country that really bind us together. The flag and the national anthem should be among them. So, of course, the president is always, I will sit at that table with anybody who wants to come here. They can call me today if they'd like to do that. We're always open to that. But our experience has been on other issues that many people don't want to come here and have the conversation, because when you actually sit down to converse about it and discuss it, you're taking away one of their major points of grievance.
All right, well, the conversation was ignited, of course, in Alabama last night.
We just got a brand new tweet. Why don't you read this?
Oh, this is from President Trump.
30 seconds.
It says, spoke to Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. Jerry is a winner who knows how to get things done. Players will stand for the country. It seems like Kellyanne, he's going to stay on this topic. A lot of critics are saying, there's so much on his plate right now, he's got to move on. This is a distraction. But it seems like he's doing the opposite of that.
The president addressed that very question in the Rose Garden yesterday during his bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Spain. He said, look, I work all the time. I could do many things at once. I think some folks who cover the president for a living only focus on one or two things at a time. So we should reflect upon that. Right. He had a bilateral meeting yesterday. He's working on health care. He flew up to New York. He's revealing his tax plan today in Indiana. We're really excited about that. And so, but the president, you know, all these presidents in the 21st century somehow become part of the so-called culture wars and the larger societal conversations. It's accepted, but it's almost expected by many Americans for presidents to weigh in.
All right. He's going to weigh in, and we're going to hear more about the tax plan in a little while. But tell us what you can tell us about how the tax structure would change under this plan.
I've seen the president's speech today, an excellent address that really lays out his vision and one that he's been working on with the Congress.
And what is the vision?
So, the vision is, I would say there are four major principles to it. The vision is to make it simpler. Americans spend over $6 billion man-hours a year that we could certainly use doing other things, just complying with the code. The code currently favors the wealthy and the privileged and the connected who can hire attorneys and accountants to help them navigate, take advantage of these exemptions, deductions, and credits. Many of which go away in the Donald Trump legislative plan for tax overhaul. Secondly, just to reduce the rates and to make sure to reduce the brackets from 7 to 3 and reduce the rates on the middle class so they actually get a pay raise. This is not just a tax bill, it's a jobs bill.
Hey, Kellyanne, how does the president define the middle class? Because we see the White House, I think that's a really important part of what ultimately comes out of this tax plan.
It is. And, of course, the accountants, the actuaries, our brilliant economic minds here and across the cabinet are working on that. Congress will need to come to terms with that as well, as you know. But I think the most important point, Abby, is that most of the country thinks of themselves as middle class and most of the polling. And so people need a tax break. Also, we need to reduce the rate on job creators. We have encouraged American businesses to park their wealth and their jobs overseas. We need to encourage them to keep those factories, those plants, and of course American jobs here in America. But we're one of 6 countries that adds an extra draconian tax on our companies just for having the plants and the workers here. So we want to bring the $2.8 trillion of wealth that's legally parked overseas back along with the jobs. And finally, make us more competitive. We just need an environment that unleashes prosperity. When Governor Pence in Indiana, now our vice president, cut taxes in his first 100 days across the board on individuals and employers, it spurred economic growth. It cut the unemployment rate almost in half, and it created all these new manufacturing jobs in Indiana. He also was able to work on other things like deals with Japan, trade deals with Japan, because once you reduce people's tax burdens, you're respecting their ability to keep more of their own money, but you're also rewarding employers, job creators, job holders, and job seekers will all benefit from the Trump tax vision. We're very excited about this. We hope Senator Joe Donnelly in Indiana, who refused to sign that letter, one of 3 Democratic senators refusing to sign Chuck Schumer's letter about resisting obstruction. So much for a better deal. We hope that he will come on board along with other Democrats. This should be bipartisan. Voters across this country, citizens, deserve a tax cut in every state.
Well, we'll hear further details a little later on officially. Kellyanne, thank you.
Thank you, Kellyanne.
Next stop, Puerto Rico. Geraldo Rivera on the ground, not only with his family, but with everybody else, trying to get that Commonwealth on its feet.
We are back with the Fox News Alert. Help is on the way to the desperately needing it, Puerto Rico. U.S. military forces deploying to the island to help those displaced by Hurricane Maria.
Only about half the people living there have drinking water at this moment. 95% of the island is completely without.
Build it from scratch. Geraldo Rivera is live in Puerto Rico. He saw it in the best of times and the worst of times. And what is it like now, Geraldo? Any sign of improvement?
You know, Brian, not yet. And I say that because the power grid is absolutely destroyed, as you indicated. This storm, this series of storms, beginning with Hurricane Irma that knocked out 70% of the power grid, and then the devastating blow from Hurricane Maria, has left this island in the dark ages. Nothing works without power. The water cannot be pumped, so people without water, without any kind of power, there is still a lingering air of desperation here. But as you said, there is some practical help beginning to trickle in, and the most dramatic of those assets is the fleet, is the Expeditionary Strike Group based around the USS Kearsarge, an aircraft carrier that right now is steaming off the east end of Puerto Rico. I had a chance to fly out there. As the Admiral told me, power enables everything. Here is the commander of the strike force, Rear Admiral Jeff Hughes, and his fellow officers.
We're here at the request of the government of Puerto Rico and the government of the Virgin Islands, working with the lead federal agency, FEMA, to help provide instantaneous response, relief, and recovery operations and efforts to those that have been displaced by these terrible storms.
So the Marines are our premier fighting force. We exist to fight the nation's wars. But in the process of training for that, the skill sets we need for this mission fit well.
This is probably the most professionally rewarding part of what we do, is the humanitarian part. Of course, we can deliver combat power, but at the same time, all of those skills for combat power translate to we can do humanitarian assistance.
The officers tell me that their Marines will be ashore today, will be accompanying them as they restore power to hospitals throughout this beleaguered, besieged, battered Commonwealth. On a personal note, we had a wonderful reunion late last night. Our Aunt Ellie, our 84-year-old aunt, my father's youngest sibling, we found her. She was alive and well, without power or without water, but at least she's healthy, and we were delighted with that. Back to you guys in New York.
Wow, how amazing for them to have seen your face, Geraldo. So heartbreaking.
A little bit of good news.
Yeah. We'll check with you again, Geraldo. And of course, the president will be there Tuesday. Congressman Brian Mast lost both his legs in Afghanistan, and he just sent a powerful message to all those anthem protesters with this picture. He's between two American flagpoles.
Good morning. Back with some headlines right now. President Trump warning he'll slap new sanctions on any country that does business with North Korea. The White House putting restrictions on 8 North Korean banks and 26 bank workers living abroad for working with the communist country. President Trump also vowing the U.S. is prepared to take disastrous measures against North Korea if necessary.
We are totally prepared for the second option, not a preferred option, but if we take that option, it will be devastating. I can tell you that. Devastating for North Korea. That's called the military option. If we have.
The White House is taking, quote, all the proper measures to protect our allies, including South Korea and Japan. The White House is planning to instate the lowest cap on refugees in U.S. history. President Trump is expected to limit entry to just 45,000 people next year. That's the lowest admission since a cap was introduced nearly 4 decades ago. Last week, President Trump told the UN that more could be done to help refugees in their home countries. Those are your headlines. Steve.
Thank you very much, Jillian. President Trump continuing to sound off on the NFL and its protesting players.
I was at Walter Reed Hospital recently, and I saw so many great young people, and they're missing legs and they're missing arms, and they've been so badly injured. And they were fighting for our country. They were fighting for our flag. They were fighting for our national anthem. And for people to disrespect that by kneeling during the playing of our national anthem, I think is disgraceful.
One of those people he's talking about is our next guest. Served our great country, decided to run for Congress while recovering at Walter Reed after losing both of his legs in Afghanistan. This week he fired back at the NFL with this powerful Facebook post. He says, I have taken a knee after jumping out of a helicopter as we looked for the enemy, taken a knee in front of the Soldier's Cross as we mourned a fallen brother, and taken a knee in church. Any player who has taken a knee to protest this great country during its anthem should already be gone.
Joining us right now is U.S. Army veteran, Florida Congressman Brian Mast, joins us from our nation's capital. Congressman, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Okay, tell us about the picture that you posted on Facebook with the sentiment that any player who has taken a knee to protest his country during the anthem should already be gone.
You know, I took a photo with my son. I try to teach all of my children, when you're doing the national anthem or the pledge, you put your hand over your heart. They like to do what their dad does. I always render a salute, so sometimes they do that as well. But we try to instill that kind of patriotism into them, and I think that's one of the biggest things that was stolen from all of us as Americans. As the NFL and these players go out there and they take a knee, they're stealing this moment of historic unity, of patriotism, of celebration, where you give your buddy a high five and you go out there and you have a great day, and they've taken that from us, that last moment of unity, and I think we have a right to.
The president's been really strong on this. He continues to tweet out about it. Obviously, we know where he stands. Given all your service and how you feel about patriotism in this country, do you think the president has handled this the right way? Do you think he needs to continue on this argument that we should not be kneeling during the national anthem?
I think he is spot on with it. You know, he made comments about Walter Reed. Obviously, I have a lot of overlap with Walter Reed, but the idea is that go well beyond my time and our service members and Walter Reed today. You know, I think that I hear about POWs from our Vietnam War, men like Mike Christian, who literally risked his life just for the chance, just for the opportunity to show respect to our flag. He was a POW. He sewed an American flag on the inside of his shirt with a bamboo needle and some strips of cloth. And then when the guards found it, they beat him within an inch of his life for doing so. And because he's such an American badass, when they threw him back into his cell, he pulled out his bamboo needle and started stitching another American flag. That's the importance of the words of our pledge, the words of our anthem, and the stars and the stripes on our flag. It's not to be taken lightly.
It gives you chills. Wow.
It does. Brian, you're somebody who just the act of standing means something very special to.
You better believe it. I don't take it for granted one instance, and you know, when I was injured, I got about 67 plus friends that I see on prosthetics every single day. You know, guys that lost 2 limbs, 3 limbs, 4 limbs, and you know, I see pictures of friends of mine that have prosthetic arms that are still out there rendering a hand salute every single opportunity that they get. This is very, very serious to us. As I said, there's men, they wear that flag on their shoulder. A lot of people think it's facing backward, but it's not. It's facing the correct direction that shows us charging forward in battle with that flag on our shoulder. That's what it means to us. It's something very deep and meaningful to anybody that served this country.
Real quickly, before you go, Congressman Mast, what do you say to the people who have the counterpoint of view and think that they admire the players for standing and taking a stand?
We're an amazing nation. These players, they're not going to be thrown into a gulag. They're not going to be jailed. They're not going to be arrested or put in handcuffs. That's the kind of great, amazing nation that we are. They're not going to suffer anything like that. But just as it's their right to go out there and protest, even if I consider it to be hugely distasteful, it's our right to not go out there and watch them play. It's the right of the owners to go out there and say, if that's the way that you're going to go out there and disrespect your country, you're not going to be a member of this team.
Congressman, I'll never forget that day with you on Capitol Hill. You are continuing to make a great difference in this country. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being with us this morning. Great to see you.
Thank you.
All right, it is 7:30 now here in New York City.
So forget Luther Strange was the biggest loser in last night's Alabama Senate runoff. Really, Mitch McConnell and the establishment. Michelle Malkin, I'm sure she has no thoughts on that. She's coming up next.
That's right. And remember the affluenza teenager who claimed he was too rich to know right from wrong? Well, here's a new one. This teenager claims she's too smart for jail. And the judge said she's right. That is Joel Fuller.
Can we get a close-up of Joel?
Oh, you were on camera?
Take a bow on camera.
Yeah, there you go. Can we step out? There you go.
Joel.
Thank you very much. All right. Now Joe's a member of that. You got to join AFTRA. Okay? Yeah, you have a choice.
So would we.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay, you just saw the teleprompter. It said, bring in Michelle Malkin, host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV.com. She joins us live today. Good morning.
Hey, Michelle.
Good morning, friends.
So who won, who lost last night? We know the stats say it was Judge Moore was the overwhelming winner over Luther Strange, who was very magnanimous in defeat. But besides that, who won and who lost?
Well, this is not a referendum on Donald Trump. What this was a referendum on was Mitch McConnell and the Swamp King politics of what my colleague at Conservative Review, Rob Eno, calls failure theater. McConnell and the establishment dumped anywhere between 10 or $30 million into a race that is for a safe seat. And what this really was about was people in Alabama, the voters, were disgusted with how Luther Strange was appointed to this interim appointment. And the shady apparent quid pro quo that took place there between the former governor, Robert Bentley, who was kicked out of office essentially because of corruption, who handed this appointment to then Attorney General Luther Strange in an exchange to back off. People don't like that. This was about rejecting business as usual, and the fact is that McConnell directed and misdirected all of these funds that should have gone to races where Republicans could be challenging Democrats. So the misplaced priorities here, that's what this was a referendum on.
You think that's just in the state of Alabama, or do you look bigger picture? Because we always like to look at these races and say, what does this say about the country as a whole? Do you think this is a bigger message that a lot of the American people are feeling right now, that they want these outsider candidates? Because if anything, he represented Trump's brand more than Luther Strange did.
He certainly did, and I hope and I'm sure that that President Trump will see that. Abby, I think you're right. There is a larger picture and a larger message here, and I would say that the message should be sent clearly, and I hope it has, to people like Jeff Flake, who is now contending with an outsider challenger, and other incumbent Republicans who have forgotten what their mission was, who've forgotten why they were sent to Washington in the first place. It's not to get perpetually reelected. It's to represent a specific agenda that grassroots Republicans especially have sent them to do, and that is to limit, not to expand it endlessly.
Surely, and keep in mind as well the fact that in Alabama, Donald Trump is still wildly popular, just not the guy he endorsed. Meanwhile, let's talk about something else. It looks like, forget about politics, let's just talk about the polls. According to a number of polls out today, apparently a majority of Americans, Michelle, agree with President Trump that people should stand during the national anthem. However, there were two Democrats who yesterday on the House floor, they said, you know what, this is a good time for us to kneel. Watch this.
You tell me which of those children's mothers are a son of a bee. That is racism. You cannot deny it. You cannot run for it. And I kneel in honor of them.
I join so many now in the NFL and elsewhere in taking a knee for the America that we all aspire it to be.
Well, here's the thing about, and we understand the political dynamics of why they would kneel, but they weren't kneeling during the pledge. And that really is what has rankled the president.
Yeah, right. And really, virtue signaling has now jumped the shark. I worry about all of this empty gesture kneeling. There's so much of it. I think we're going to have some joint pain issues. I think there's going to be a run on glucosamine if we keep going. But look, I think that's the problem here. And that's why I think essentially the NFL owners and the brass who supported this are going to be in trouble, because it's become so confused. What are you protesting? It reminds me, when I was in college, there were so many people that would say, let me speak, let me speak. And then you'd say, okay, what do you want to say? And they'd say, that's it. Right. I mean, right? The race baiting here is particularly toxic and poisoning, and that's what was so offensive to so many people, whatever race, whatever color, whatever background. And you take a look at what's happened with these NFL. You have to remember where it started. It started with Colin Kaepernick, a guy who supports Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, and the worst kind of black militants who have a basic bigotry against our best law enforcement officers in America. That's the problem.
But here's the other problem. And I thought it was a bigger story last week on Wednesday when we saw the third graders take a knee before their Pop Warner football game. But this is the problem. Now it's spread everywhere. A high school band in Oakland decides to take a knee, the whole band, and is joined by a catcher from the Oakland A's, Bruce Maxwell. The baseball players are beginning to take a seat. And this is the first time I've seen a band take a knee.
Yeah, it is crazy, Brian.
While playing the anthem, I should say.
At the same time.
Yes, that's right, at the same time as the anthem. Look, all these people who say that we need to fight the power, I say to them, you are the power. Get up off your knee, get up off your butts, and do something about it if you see wrongs in this country. And the fact is, there are good faith people across this country of whatever race working with each other to make a difference in this world rather than take a knee and engage in the worst kind of empty gesture politics.
When you go into a locker room in the NFL, what I was always struck by, I guess most Major League Baseball locker rooms, is that black and white players don't see color, they're teammates. And if they could bring that message to schools that need it together, that would be something extremely proactive. And, man, our cameras would be there.
Right. Michelle, how do we heal? That's a great point. I think Brian is spot on there. How do we heal? How do we come together? How do we make it so all of us, blacks, white, whatever your background is, we're all standing together for that flag and for the national anthem?
Well, I would put this back on the resistance, and I will tell them to stop smearing people that disagree with them on how to organize our society, what the best role of government is. Stop calling us what. Stop it. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Accept the results of the election and move on with your lives. And get some therapy, maybe?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Michelle Malkin joined us today from Colorado. Michelle, thank you very much.
Thanks, you bet.
All right. I was talking to somebody who's supposed to sing the national anthem at a major league sporting event in the next couple of days. They said if there is somebody protesting, they might not actually sing the anthem. We'll say something like,
it's a tough position to be in.
I'll go ahead and start as soon as everybody stands. So that could be a first.
That would be an interesting standoff.
That'd be a powerful moment, yeah. All right, so over to Jillian for some other headlines we're following. Jillian, what's going on?
That's right. Good Wednesday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. And you know, we've told you about the affluenza teen who was let off easy on manslaughter charges after he was said to be too rich to know better. Well, now a similar case is causing outrage in England. Lavina Woodward smiling while walking out of court after a judge called her too bright for prison. The Oxford University student and aspiring surgeon walking free after stabbing her boyfriend during a drug-fueled frenzy. O.J. Simpson could walk out of prison as a free man as early as next week. October 1st is the Juice's first possible day of parole after serving 9 years behind bars in Nevada. He is expected to start his new life in Las Vegas before eventually moving to Florida. Simpson was unanimously granted parole in July. He has been serving a 33-year sentence for kidnapping and armed robbery. Even little princes get sick of school. Britain's Prince George was all smiles on his first day, as most kids are, but after just a few weeks, it seems the royal is all ready for summer vacation. His dad, Prince William, reportedly telling a fellow parent at morning drop-off that George did not want to go to class. According to a British paper, William predicted this would start happening on the first day. It's one of those, like, they're just like us. Who doesn't get tired of it, right?
And Julian, the other thing is he goes to one of those schools, you're not allowed to have best friends.
No, right.
You have to spread it out. If you get too close to somebody, they make you move your room or move your classroom.
Too many germs?
Friends anymore, Brian.
Exactly. I'm breaking up with you, Jillian. Goodbye.
All right, Jillian, straight ahead, President Trump set to unveil his big tax reform plan today. So what's in it? Well, here's a hint. There's good news in it for the middle class. Live in Washington with